In the sleepy suburbs of California, a mastermind was weaving a web of deceit that would leave investigators baffled for decades. The Golden State Killer, as he came to be known, had already claimed over 50 victims, leaving behind a trail of terror and devastation in his wake. But what's most astonishing is not just the sheer scale of the atrocities committed, but the fact that this individual was able to evade capture for an astonishing 43 years. Philip Garrido, a seemingly ordinary man with a quiet demeanor, had somehow managed to flee under the radar of law enforcement. Had the under them have His arrest in 2018 marked the culmination of a decades-long pursuit, as investigators painstakingly re-examined evidence and followed every lead. And yet, even in the face of mounting pressure, Garrido remained eerily calm, refusing to crack under questioning. But it was a chance discovery that would finally unravel the tangled threads of this enigmatic figure's past. A keen-eyed detective stumbled upon an astonishing revelation, a hidden trail of evidence that had been cleverly concealed by the killer himself. The shocking truth: Philip Garrido, aka the Golden State Killer, was not acting alone. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a disturbing pattern of manipulation and coercion. It transpired that Garrido's accomplice was none other than his wife, Nancy, a woman with a seemingly ordinary life who had been harboring secrets for over 2 decades. The implications were jaw-dropping. The Golden State Killer, once thought to be a lone wolf, was actually a calculating dude driven by a twisted desire for power and control. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community, leaving residents stunned and reeling in the face of such brazen deception. How could someone so close to law enforcement have managed to orchestrate such a heinous scheme? The answer lies in the killer's hidden trail, a trail that would eventually lead investigators down a rabbit hole of deceit, corruption, and ultimately justice. Between 1976 and 1986, a calculated and meticulous predator stalked the Golden State, preying on unsuspecting victims in their own homes. The case would go down in history as one of the most heinous and complex serial crimes to ever occur within American borders. Known as the Golden State Killer or East Area Rapist, the perpetrator's reign of terror spanned over a decade, leaving a staggering 12 confirmed murders and 45 rapes in his wake. The modus operandi was chillingly consistent. The attacker would gain entry into homes under the guise of being a burglar, but once inside, he would proceed to bind and gag his victims. He would then engage in prolonged periods of physical and emotional abuse before fleeing the scene, leaving behind no clear signs of evidence. The investigation into the Golden State Killer's activities was a daunting task, with multiple law enforcement agencies working tirelessly to identify the perpetrator. At one point, there were over 2,000 suspects on the list, but none of them panned out as potential leads. The case became increasingly frustrating for investigators, who found themselves at an impasse. Despite numerous attempts by authorities to crack the case, the Golden State Killer remained elusive, striking fear into the hearts of residents in California, Sacramento, and Orange counties. As time went on, the public began to lose hope that justice would ever be served. But little did they know, a trail of deceit was being expertly laid out, waiting to be uncovered by an intrepid detective with a keen eye for detail. As investigators continued to score the evidence, a crucial breakthrough emerged that would ultimately lead them down a path of discovery. In June 2018, Paul Holes, a retired Contra Costa County sheriff's detective and renowned expert in DNA profiling, revealed that he had made a groundbreaking discovery. Using a genealogy website, Holes had been able to build a family tree for the Golden State Killer, tracing his ancestry back several generations. The breakthrough came when a user on Ancestridna, whose pseudonym was Cease, had uploaded their own DNA profile to the site. Unbeknownst to Cease, their DNA matched that of one of the Golden State Killer's victims. Holes realized that if he could identify the relatives of this unknown donor, they may be able to find a lead on the killer. Using genealogical software and databases, Holes was able to create a family tree for the suspected killer, connecting multiple relatives across several generations. Among these relatives was Philip and Maureen Carrillo's son-in-law, Joseph James D'Angelo, who would later become the primary suspect in the case. The next step was crucial, verifying D'Angelo's now against the known evidence collected from crime scenes. The results were astonishing. A 99.9 match with the Golden State Killer's DNA profile. For decades, the Golden State Killer had evaded capture. Now, a simple genealogical inquiry and an old-fashioned police investigation would finally expose his true identity. D'Angelo was arrested on April 24, 2018, in Citrus Heights, California, marking the beginning of the end for one of America's most notorious serial predators. The trail of deceit that had gone undetected for over 3 decades was finally about to be unraveled. The trail of deception left by the Golden State Killer was so expertly crafted that it took investigators decades to unravel its threads. But once they did, a pattern began to emerge. A meticulous analysis of the suspect's behavior revealed a calculated attempt to evade detection. One telling sign was the frequency and location of his crimes. The killer would strike in suburban neighborhoods, often targeting middle-class families. He'd break into homes, bind his victims with rope, and then proceed to commit unspeakable acts. The brutality was almost clinical, as if he were trying to leave a signature. But what's even more astonishing is that the suspect, later identified as Joseph James D'Angelo, seemed to be adapting his methods over time. He changed his modus operandi from one crime to the next, making it increasingly difficult for authorities to pinpoint a common thread. The investigation was further complicated by the lack of forensic evidence. No DNA samples were collected at the crime scenes until 1979, when advances in technology allowed for more efficient analysis. By then, D'Angelo had already committed dozens of crimes, leaving behind only faint impressions of his presence. It wasn't until 2018, decades after the crime ceased, that investigators finally cracked the case using a groundbreaking technique called genetic genealogy. This involved uploading now profiles from the crime